I mean, the number is so significant. You have 11 Republicans willing to remove Marjorie Taylor Greene from her committees. Despite her calls for violence, et cetera. The night before, 61 Republicans voted to remove Liz Cheney for taking a principled stand on impeachment. So compare 61 to 11. I am really struck by the political malpractice here by Kevin McCarthy, who has managed to elevate Marjorie Taylor Greene into the face of the Republican Party, when if he had any sense whatsoever of political hygiene, Republicans could have taken care of this on their own. You remember it was just 2 years ago that Republicans stripped Steve King of his seats on the Judiciary and the Agriculture Committee because of bigoted comments he made. So flash forward, not only do they not do to Marjorie Taylor Greene what they did to Steve King, but they allowed this vote where 199 Republicans now are on record saying, yeah, we're okay with this person being our party's representative. Look, this is something that the Republicans could have done themselves. They could have cleaned house. You're going to have a lot of these Republicans who are going to be going back to their districts and saying, well, we didn't want to set a precedent of letting the Democrats do this, or we shouldn't be doing this. Well, the question that should be asked them is, why didn't you fix it yourself unless you're okay? And as you pointed out at the top of the show, this has just backfired on them so predictably. No contrition whatsoever, no remorse whatsoever. She's just rubbing it in their faces. And Republicans could have sent the message that this is not who we are. But instead, last night, because of that vote and the unwillingness of Kevin McCarthy to pull the trigger on this, because of that vote, they're saying, yeah, Marjorie Taylor Greene is a member in good standing of the Republican Party. And remember that when each of those 199 Republicans is on the ballot next year.
I want to read you something that conservative Republican Senator Kevin Cramer wrote in an op-ed. What Marjorie Taylor Greene's repugnant comments can teach us all. Greene's comments have been characterized by many in the media as far right. They are not. These statements are not based on an extremely conservative ideology. They're horrifying and completely untethered to reality, no matter where you fall on the political spectrum, and should be reported as such by the media. Thanks. Congresswoman Greene's remarks are not conservative. Denouncing them is not censorship, and allowing them to stand without consequence is unacceptable. The people of Georgia should closely consider whether she should continue representing them. These comments and the controversy surrounding them offer a rare moment where anger is justified and action should be taken. That is not always the case. I understand what he's trying to say here, Charlie, but I have to say, as someone who worked in Republican politics my whole life, the left was right about everything. They were right that Donald Trump got so much attention. The media helped propel him, and I'm part of it, so I'm not blaming anybody. I mean, the left, which has been covered and people tried to brand them as the radical left, they've been right about everything. And any attempt to say there were two sides here is dead wrong. The Republicans have greenlit the conspiracy theorists in their ranks by a vote of 199 to 11. End of story.
Well, and the larger picture here, though, is that, look, if you're really upset about bigotry and conspiracy theories, then how do you explain the fact that the Republican Party, including Senator Cramer, supported Donald Trump for the last 4 years? I mean, he was the conspiracy theorist
and
in
they
chief.
Probably will again next week.
That's right. And the real irony of all this is that as we're talking here right now, it is less than a month since a conspiracy theory and a lie led to the insurrection at the Capitol. Donald Trump's lies, which had been tolerated and rationalized for all of those years, resulted in what happened on January 6th. So they are not harmless. And the failure of Republicans to draw a line, the failure of Republicans to push back, came home to roost. And yet they've learned absolutely nothing from it, as you saw with the Marjorie Taylor Greene vote. But I'm going to push back a little bit here. One of the things that I think this is a great moment for some Republicans, maybe in the Senate, to do is to say, look, we are not all Marjorie Taylor Greene. There are at least 11. There were 10 who voted to impeach President Trump. And if there's any hope for the Republican Party at all, and I'm very, very, very skeptical about that, it's going to be people like Ben Sasse doing that video speaking to his constituents and saying, look, we can't do this. We can't go for the crazy. We can't just become a cult of personality. They need to speak up because Republicans need to hear, the country needs to hear from other Republicans saying, okay, that's not what we signed up for. That's not who we are. Unfortunately, because of that vote last night, that's a hard case to make because that's who they were last night.
Let me push back right back at you on this point. I love what Ben Sasse said, but why didn't he say it and rally Mitch McConnell to his cause 4 years ago? It is too little too late to point out the perils of Trumpism now. He, enacted some of the most cruel and least conservative policies our country's ever seen. And those people like Ben Sasse and Chris Christie and others who are rushing to, decontaminate themselves, where were they? They could have stopped him if Mitch McConnell had said, I will not confirm another judge until you stop the BS. I mean, there were so many off-ramps for this party, and they took none of them.
Well, and you and I spent the last 4 years basically saying, when are you going to do this? When are you going to speak up? And you're right about that. I mean, Ben Sasse broke our hearts many times. He went into hiding before he got reelected. He voted with the president time and time again. But, here's the thing, Nicolle. Right now, in order to save this country, we are going to need people who see the light. We are going to have to welcome people who, in fact, are late to the table because
I hear you.
Next week we want to have senators who look at the evidence and will go, you know what? I made a mistake by going along with this guy. I have changed my mind. I am willing to put country over party. And, what we ought to do is say, welcome to the team of putting country over party, as opposed to saying, hey, now it's too late. Who cares what you think? Because that's their calculation. Their calculation is, I could do the right thing and I will just get beaten up and nobody will say anything nice about me. But I do think that, look, Ben Sasse could have done a lot more. So could a lot of people. But right now, going forward, we need every principled voice saying the bigotry, the conspiracy theories, the crazy. We need to draw a line and reject it. We need to make a coalition, including a coalition of some converts.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel. You should know that you can follow today's top stories and breaking news and catch up on your favorite MSNBC shows all in one place. Download the NBC News app today.